Hey everybody, my name's David Brennan. Welcome back to SaaS Founder Stories. Today I have a very special guest, Gaurav. He's the founder and CEO of Jeeva AI. Welcome to the show, man. Happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks, David. Excited to be here.
Cool. So tell me about Jeeva AI. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so we're basically building these AI sales agents. So you can imagine all the stuff that is the manual repetitive for sales, like finding leads, researching data, enriching data, all the way to doing personalized outreach on email, LinkedIn, responding to inquiries, all of that, like us connecting, we don't think AI would do that ever, maybe 20, 30 years later, but manual repetitive work, AI can do better, faster, cheaper. So that's kind of what we're trying to automate with AI.
Very cool. And so give me the origin story. How'd you get into it?
Yeah, so I actually start from the very beginning. I actually grew up in New Delhi. I come from India originally. I'm in Los Angeles now. It's beautiful sunny weather here, but grew up in Delhi. Very humble family. Lost my dad to cancer when I was two. Mom washed utensils door to door. But just growing up, I was a very nerdy kid. I love coding, so I started coding when I was 10. Built my first video game at 12. I was very fascinated by machine learning. At that time, it was like pre LLM, like the old school ML. I was doing a lot of games with where it could think on its own. So that's kind of what I was trying to build. So I started my first company right after high school, completely bootstrapped SaaS company, ran it for about 10 plus years, had a decent exit, made some money. After that, I came to the US. My acquiring company was based out of here. So they brought me here and I came to Los Angeles. I was actually sitting, for those of you, IHOP is very popular in Santa Monica area. That's where I was. And I was like, man, this is amazing. I was sitting at IHOP eating like pancakes and sausage. And I was like, man, I'm never leaving. So that's kind of my story of how I got to the US. And with Jiva, we had a very like, kind of like an up and down journey like every founder does. We actually started a very different idea. We were doing customer success AI and we raised a bunch of money for it as well. We kind of grew like this and then it stalled like, and we almost went down the same way as we got up. I think post COVID, a lot of budgets were getting cut in customer success and service teams. So it became really hard for us. We were running out of money and we had to fire a lot of our sales staff, unfortunately. And it was just me and my founder just grinding sales. And we basically decided to write this script where we can automate a lot of the sales and outreach ourselves. And it worked very well for us. So we were like, man, wouldn't this be interesting if we just did this instead? So that's kind of how we pivoted. And Jiva's been awesome, like less than a year old, 0 to 5 million in ARR. We have about 250 customers now, 300 customers actually, close to 300, 298 as of today. Some of the best companies in the world using it and just growing like crazy with a super small, very effective team using AI.
That's really amazing. I think what jumped out at me, I was listening to a Y Combinator interview from last week, and they were talking about where it was really incredible if a Y Combinator company, maybe one
Yeah,
or two of them, made it to a million or 2 million
yeah,
in 12 months. And they
yeah.
said now they're seeing
Scaling
that
up. Mhm.
companies are doing 5, 10 million in the first year.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
wild.
incredible to see the growth that's happening. So congratulations, man. You're rocking it right there with the best YC companies.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
I have a funny story. I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was like, "Man, we did zero to five in less than a year, like 9 months or 7 months." They were like, "Oh yeah, I just spoke to this founder who did like 0 to 13 in like 7 months." I was like, "Holy shit!" Like the benchmark just keeps getting.
yeah, it's just getting crazy.
Yeah, while like for my first company, like I thought it'll take me like 20 years to get to like 20 million. Now people are doing it in 1 year.
Isn't that
Yeah,
insane?
it's
Wow.
insane. It's crazy.
Cool. Well, with that type of growth, I have a feeling the next part of our conversation is going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Um, and so you're the first guest on the show that gets to chat with me about AI. And I think it's really interesting because where we shifted, we were getting people to tell about the challenges that they overcame, and we realized what they really need to know, what founders really need to know is how AI can help them operate their business right now. So
Exactly.
let's jump into what's been your strategy coming up to this, and then we'll jump into what's your strategy for the next 12, 18 months.
For sure. Absolutely. Should
So
you? Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
give me what did you do to get to here, and then we'll talk later about what you're doing for the next 18 months.
Totally. So a couple of things that we are doing very differently is I'll give you some like basic stuff that we do that I wish I had done before, and then like stuff that we plan to do in the future, and then all the founders can do this. But one of the things I do is like we have a super small team. I think 11 or 12 people now. But what we do, and it's not that we're not going to grow. We want to expand. We want to build a big company. I don't think AI is going to completely replace people, but I think it's going to be super efficient. Like I think whatever, if traditionally, I don't know if you've seen the VC models, they always show that if you're at 10 million in ARR, then you have to hire 100 people to get to 20, right? And you have to be at 250 at like a Series C stage or whatever that is, right? Like I think all those numbers are going to be reduced by at least 50%, if not 75%. And that's
Mhm.
just going to be everywhere for everybody, unless you're like a very bloated company. So what we do is David, like one of the first things I did is like we use AI to code everything. So 99% of our code is written by AI. I'm very ruthless about it. I don't lie about it. I want to tell my customers that hey, we're doing a lot of work with AI and we use AI to code. There used to be this GitHub repository called AutoGPT that is no longer like super hot, but it was very popular. But the whole premise was you can basically keep running code and it can keep prompting itself, and that's what ChatGPT is now doing with the deep research. But the really cool part is if you just get a ChatGPT license for your developers, it's like $20 for a team license. Man, the amount of code they can push out is going to be 5x of whatever they're pushing out before. Now, if you have money to spend, you can get a GitHub Copilot. It's a $12 seat. It comes with Microsoft. It works in your kind of like IDE, whatever you use, like Visual Studio. If you have a little bit more money, like for $25, you can get Cursor, which is like another really popular coding platform that works with it. So now instead of having like 10 developers to be able to build a lot of software, you can have, because the challenge with AI companies, David, is like it's okay, sure, you're building an AI company, but you still have to do the basic stuff that SaaS companies have to offer. Like you cannot get around like configurations and functionality and CRM integrations. Like you know everything, right? You need these like small features. Otherwise, people are like, oh yeah, this one feature is really good, but I just can't use it in my workflow, and everything else sucks around it. So I might as well just use the traditional SaaS vendor or the big company out there. So you have to catch up and you have to build all these seatbelt features. You have to build a lot for AI companies. And so one thing we do is we use AI to code everything as much as possible. Obviously, we have some good engineers who can use their own critical thinking to prompt the system, design the system, but 99% of our code is AI generated. That's number one. Now we have a superpower. We have to use our own dog food. We use Jiva to do all our own outreach. Every single morning I wake up, AI is like, hey, by the way, I have these new 100 contacts I found for you that are hiring for a VP of sales, that are hiring for SDRs, that are XYZ signals. They're in the market for an AI SDR, AI sales agents. They're searching for these keywords. By the way, I found their emails. I have everything ready for you. I have a new email sequence, new LinkedIn message. So I am prospecting 24/7. It's not really me prospecting, but me and a couple of sales guys we have, they're prospecting 24/7, 7 days a week. And just we wake up to packed calendars. And it's not that I would encourage people to use my tool, but there are other tools out there too that do something similar. There's open source tools out there that do this too, or you can build your own with just like some hack around ChatGPT that you could build and automate some scripts to just do this 24/7, and it just cuts down all your expenses on expensive marketing ads, because Google ads and all these Facebook ads can become so expensive very quickly, right? So like for early stage companies, so we almost spend $0 in our outbound stack and inbound stack and just basically like get a bunch of leads and we try to close deals. So those two things have been super pivotal for us, is like using AI to code and then using AI to do all our sales outreach. So we just have a couple of salespeople, one girl, one guy, who just like wake up in the morning. They have 7, 8, 9 meetings 5 days a week.
Just do.
Exactly, and they're just on back-to-back calls. So that's kind of what we're doing right now.
That's really incredible. So I want to jump in because I want to talk about the coding and then we'll talk about what you guys have planned for the next year. Because I think it's really interesting and there's a lot of pushback from engineers right now about using Copilot or Cursor. And man, I have had this conversation with my own engineers,
Man,
and it's just like it's unbelievable to me how much pushback. So we see probably about a 50% increase
yeah,
from GitHub Copilot. In your experience, what's the best tool you've come across so far, and how do you guys like break it out in 3 minutes how you specifically use it for an engineer so they can understand why it's so important for them to be looking at this going forward?
yeah, totally. So David, one of the things I'll tell you, which is really really funny, is like I had these engineers. So we pivot. I was telling our story. And I basically went up to the team and we had to cut down the team a bunch. Basically, we had to like part ways with 75% of the folks. So the people I had were like the best people, right? Like you always say, oh no, it's like a reduction in force, but you know this, right? We keep the best people. That's true everywhere. So And I went to them and I was like, we got to change how we do things. We can't have these long planning cycles. We cannot deploy once every month, even once every week is too slow, right? We have to probably deploy like 2 times a day, and we have to just change how we do things. Otherwise, you're just going to run out of money, and you guys will be searching for jobs elsewhere. And the amount of pushback I got was insane, David. It was so frustrating. I was like, I don't know why this is, because I understand it, I get it. A few of my founder friends get it. Why aren't these developers getting it? There's a lot of control issues. Like, a lot of the developers were like, man, this is how we do things, here's how we do it. ChatGPT sucks. All the feedback was like, these coding tools are so primitive, they don't understand how our code base is written, and all of that stuff. The first thing I did was, like, is I used to be a software engineer, but I'm very detached from code because I haven't been coding for about 3 4 years now. But I literally built an application over the weekend, pure, like, and I showed it to my developers, and they were like, oh, this is really good. And I was like, by the way, I want to tell you, I did this over a weekend. And by the way, 0% of the code was written by me. I didn't write a single code. I didn't edit anything. I used and this is like the old version when it was ChatGPT 3.5, basically. And I think that's kind of what they're opened their eyes. I was like, hey, it's not, AI is not going to replace your job. It's going to be someone using AI, and you have to get on board with this. Otherwise, you're going to get replaced very soon, not just here, but anywhere in the world. Basically, that's what's going to happen. So I think that was a big mind shift change for us. I would say for developers who are junior, ChatGPT is the best because they can go prompt back and forth with it. They can like show everything. For mid-level developers, I would say GitHub Copilot is cheaper. It is in your Visual Studio, so it doesn't do a hell of a job to like give you whole snippets of code, but it can actually help you fill things and fill gaps so you can do much things much faster. For advanced developers, I would say Cursor is really, really good. It also works with Visual Studio, but it's like it just gives them superpowers, right? They can control every aspect of it, but they don't necessarily have to make it feel like that the AI is doing everything for them. So that's pretty cool. But man, the future is like all code. I think even Microsoft was saying that 75% of the code written on GitHub everywhere in the world is now AI, is machine
Yeah.
generated. So
Yeah.
that's happening.
It's incredible. I think going back to YC, they also said that last batch, 10% of people were using Cursor.
Yeah.
Now every single one, every founder's using it.
Using cursor, yeah, it's getting really popular really quickly, and it's just
Yeah.
surprising because this market is so competitive for like AI coding helping. There's like 1,500 tools, so it's
Hmm.
surprising how there's still like winners and losers, right? Like, there's people who
Yeah.
are coming up, and I bet like I don't know if you saw, but there's another tool called Replit, which is like a web browser based IDE solution. But in Replit, they launched an agent, and it's freaking, sorry for my friends, it's freaking wild, David. It's amazing. It's
I
like,
love it.
right? It's like literally you could basically prompt it, but the only challenge is it doesn't work with the existing code base that you have, but it's going to get there. But you can literally go and say that, hey, I want an application that can take all my data from my Apple Watch and show me graphs and charts and figures
Yeah.
of how my health is and what should I be doing better. And I want to do this. And it's going to build a whole application for you. Now you can go into the code and edit it, go back and prompt it. It's wild how it works. And that's, I think, the future. I think GitHub Copilot is going to do that too. And everybody else is going to follow suit, where you could just prompt in a browser and you can see code on one side, you can see the application on the other side, and you can go switch back and forth. You can upload screenshots and Figma files, and you'll be able to get code. All of that stuff is
Yeah.
happening very soon,
Yeah.
very,
I
very soon.
totally agree. I think you'll see it. I think you're going to see it the, in, let's say, 12 to 18 months from now.
Mhm.
You'll be able to go in, draw out what you want
Exactly.
roughly, and say, hey, this is what I kind of think from a visual idea. This is what I want it to do. And
Mhm.
it will kick you up a model of it. And
Yeah,
then you'll be able to just like, no, I want to change this, and that will be how it'll be natural language will be the coding language that you use.
I totally agree. And beyond natural language, exactly what you said, you'll be able to like go in a screenshot and say, hey, I want this button. You can circle it and say, I want it dragged here. And the
Yeah.
code change will happen, for example. Or when you click on this button, I want to connect it to this second page. So it's like beyond natural language almost, right? Like, now
Yeah.
you're interacting with it as if a designer is talking to a developer and be like, man, I want this here. I want you to go do this. I want you to change this like this. And all of that would happen on the front end and the back end, which is it's pretty freaking amazing. I don't know what's
Dude,
going to
it's
happen.
incredible.
What happens is like more people who are willing to do the work, right, are able to now build things and put it out in the world, which I truly believe what's going to happen is there's going to be at least 100 million small businesses that rise. and they can run it without having a big back end office, right? Like to have a successful small business that is doing 1, 2, 5, 10 million in annual revenue successfully, sustainably, you do not need 20 people. You could just have two people basically, like two founders or two partners who are just doing everything, and they're doing sales and service and support and engineering and back office. And I think that's why I think that's very good for the world, because a lot of the economy is driven by SMBs, right? Like it's not necessarily, obviously Nvidia is massive and it feels very good to have Nvidias in the world, but they don't drive the economy, right? 80% of US GDP is SMBs, and it's true
Mhm.
for the whole world.
And if you imagine, like, we'll run over time a little bit on this, but
Sure.
you imagine something like Etsy or Shopify, right? They have their whole store. So you've got a small business who's trying to do something,
Yeah.
right? And so they have to latch on to this big behemoth and that's how they get a percentage, right? Because they're using their infrastructure.
100%.
Imagine if you like, I want to start a
Yeah.
store and boom, your AI puts it up. It's like pushing, it's pulling traffic because it knows the right people. Like the future for this stuff is going to be incredible, and there's no better time to be an SMB than the
100%.
next 5 to 10 years. You're going to see creativity, people that never had resources all around the world do absolutely incredible things because they're going to have an AI that just lifts them.
I totally agree. I think I'm a huge believer of that, right? I think that's when the true GDP and economy and all of that go up, because you're seeing this right now, right? Like there's a lot of AI buzz and there's a lot of companies, but only large companies are benefiting from AI right now. But have you seen the GDP of the world hasn't grown? It's not that the US economy is 5 times better since AI was invented. But with the internet, that actually did happen. Like the GDP for all the world increased 2, 3, 5x, 10x very quickly. And I think that's what's going to happen when a lot of the SMBs start using it, and they're creating it, because that's where the true value happens, in my opinion.
That's amazing. Okay, tell me what's your plan for the next 12 months with AI?
Yeah, a lot of the above, like one of the things that we never did before was marketing. So we just hired our first marketer, and now we're trying to do everything with AI, right? So I was just telling, like, we use this new website to build our website from Framer, and Framer has a lot of AI pieces, but literally I have a UX designer who basically drew mockups, and we fed it to an AI engine, and we were like, man, just give us the front end code for it. We had to do minimal number of changes. We were able to, like my last website for my last product, we spent so much time and effort on it. We had this product marketing person, I had this design agency, because I wanted to make it look really good, spend a lot of time and effort on it, which was a conscious decision we made. David, we must have spent close to $120,000 on the website for the whole year, like talking to multiple people. First batch of people did a shitty job, then we had to hire others, and all the above, right? And then we had a decent looking website, or maybe it was a great website, but for this one, it looks nice, right? It looks clean, and it took us like half a day to build it up, basically, right? It's wild. It's wild. And I wouldn't even be like, that, oh, it's a hell lot of a different, right? If I had shown this to someone else and my previous website, I don't think they'll be like, wow, like one website is, it's like those cheese. Have you seen those videos where people eat this cheese, or they have this old wine that's a $4 wine, and a 4 million, like $400,000 wine, and people are like, get confused? I feel that's exactly what's going to happen with AI. There's going to be like a $4 piece of work with AI, and a $4,000 piece of work with AI, and people wouldn't know the difference. I think that's what's happening in the world. So
I
we're
agree.
doing.
I'll tell you what, where I think it's going to change, you just nailed it. Because what's going to happen is there's going to be people that are perfectionists and do it the hard, long way,
Mhm.
and they're
Sure.
going to lose. And
Yeah.
there's people that are going to do it the fast,
Yeah.
iterative, daily, boom, 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 boom. And yeah, they'll get it wrong, but they'll get it right enough that they'll make 100 decisions in the time it
Exactly.
takes that other person to do one, and they'll be 50 times ahead of them.
I totally agree. I think that's
Yeah.
happening. There's one of my investors. His name is Jack Altman. He's a super famous guy. He's obviously Sam Altman's brother from OpenAI, but he also is a very famous entrepreneur. He did Lattice. He just put in a small check in us, but super helpful guy. He says one thing which I truly believe: like in this world, either to be successful right now, you need to be either as close to AI as possible or as far away from AI as possible. Basically, there's no other career paths for you.
Yeah.
Either you're in it, and that's what I told my developers and my team is like, if you're in it, then you have to fully just like fully be immersed in it. There's no way that you're not waking up reading to AI news. You cannot be closed minded about any new thing that happens, right? For example, when DeepSeek came out, like a lot of my developers were like, we don't want to try this. We already have the infrastructure set up. And I was like, hey, we have to do it. Like, we have to check out how this could be useful for us. Or you have to be as far away as from AI as possible. You're probably like growing tomatoes on a farm somewhere that has nothing to do with AI, and that's probably how you'll be successful. But I don't think there's any middle path. Like, you cannot be one way or the other, and I truly believe in it. I think those are the only two ways to be very successful right now for hopefully for the next decade. I think.
I love it. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Of
I
course,
think
man.
you and I could probably talk for 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
And I'm looking for our next conversation, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, really excited to be here, and thanks for the opportunity again.